A hot summer night in the year known as 1914. At the Pembroke Lilac Sanctuary, as the clock tolls midnight, all appears to be well. And that couldn't be more of an illusion. For the Pembrokes, Henry and Jane and their daughters Diana and Sophie are all the targets of the relentless Reverend Gaumont, who believes that they have stolen his south tract of farmland when, in reality, the land was sold to the Pembrokes while the Reverend was ailing and his son Nathaniel believed him on the cusp of death. Just a week before, the Reverend had visited the Pembrokes at the Lilac Sanctuary, making the acquaintance of Diana and Sophie. Before being driven from the property, the Reverend Gaumont revealed intense and seemingly unknowable knowledge of Diana Pembroke's secret. A secret that has her up late and writing a letter in secret. A letter which will then be mailed in secret. And that secret is named Lowell Putnam.
July 6, 1914. My dearest Lowell, the necessity of discretion, given our situations, requires that I take up my pen and write you only when guaranteed sweetest solitude after all others have retired. Such is the nature of visiting my parents and Sophie here at the sanctuary. To do otherwise is to risk exposure, humiliation, and utter ruin. A man whose character and experience are so accumulated in contrast to my own. A man of industry, a man of fortune, and a man having been divorced. These things require care in their administration. To be prudent is to invest in love at a later time, the deferral of ecstasy until we can be as one. You and I, my love. It's been nearly 6 weeks, 4 here at the sanctuary, and another 2 before that since we last met. An eternity, Lowell. While our love, I grant you, must be concealed in the present, it is only so that it may bear fuller flower in short time. It is to that end that I write you now, Lowell Putnam. The opportunity is at hand for us to once again be close. Perhaps it is not under the most ideal circumstances, particularly for mother and father, but very soon I shall join you in that great city, and by diverse means you and I shall finally be as one, and our love a secret from our loved ones no longer.
Annex, the continuing story of a peculiar bend in the avenue. Traffic goes north, traffic goes south. The streetcar runs between, and all we can do is try to keep up.
I shall soon be a traveler once more. Mother and Sophie and I will be traveling together. Father's solution to the trouble at the Lilac Sanctuary, a sort of adventure for the women folk. Hence, shops and museums and tours and teas, and the routine in a different setting. Yet it is almost dear to me, for this voyage puts me once again near you. It is in that teeming metropolis that we shall meet again. It is there, through my own significant endeavor on behalf of my own happiness, that our deed shall be done. Of course, in this romantic volley of mine, there is Sister Sophie to be considered. There are only the 2 of us after all, and she's so much more fragile and sensitive of spirit than I, and currently nursing a devastating crush on Nathaniel Gaumont, who has become quite taken with Father's sales assistant, Lila, a very pleasant and attractive young woman of French origin, I believe. I notice the walks they take at the Lilac Sanctuary, but alas, Sophie does not see it, or won't. However, she is well aware of our cloak and dagger literary assignations, and I assure you of that. In some ways, perhaps, Sophie may be an innocent, but in others she possesses a knowledge unknown to you or I. Perhaps she's got the same power that Mother claims to have, and claims to have inherited from Grandmother Sanders and passed down to Sophie and I. Here, regrettably, I go telling family tales, and truthfully, I have not a fortune-telling bone on my body. Mother has always had a weakness for that sort of thing, especially as she's grown older. Yet I wish she'd go about it more quietly, as it's quite nerve-wracking to watch Mother bug her eyes and hiss in her breath and speak sharply about premonitions and a great darkness descending over her family. Of course, one can't fault her accuracy, for that great darkness descending seems to have taken human form in the shape of the Reverend Gaumont. He has declared a blood feud with our family and has promised in long and exhausting tirades to wage war upon the Pembrokes and drive them from this land so that he may reclaim it. The man is elderly, but he is fierce, Lowell, and Father has taken him at his word by hiring armed guards to walk among the hired hands at the sanctuary. Dare I say it, Henry Pembroke has hired protection. However, it does Mother no good. She still frets, she still looks every which way, rolling her eyes about as if the Reverend were to appear at any moment. The talk of lawsuits is bad enough, but the Reverend seems liable to materialize day or night, inside or outside, public or private. As Mother keeps saying, often before suffering her headaches, he simply is. It's late, the grandfather clock having tolled 1. I'd best finish this letter and return to bed before I see the Reverend Gaumont peering in the parlor window at me. I wouldn't put it past that devil. As much as I hate to sound like Mother, he gives me a terrible sense of dread rising from my very soul. The old man is obsessed with Father's land and is coming after our family. When he came to the house, and I sent him away with a respectable wound, he threatened me with mention of the Batts family and what he did to them. If I had more time before we depart for the East in our next meeting, Lowell, I would investigate just what did happen to the Batts family. Their old farmhouse, neglected and avoided all these years, stands in sight of the window where I now write this to you. It came with the property when Nathaniel Gaumont sold to Father. All Father knows is that the Batts family once owned this property before Father and before Gaumont did, and that they vanished without a trace, and apparently became quite the wellspring of neighborhood speculations and ghost stories. Or are they ghost stories? I wonder. Did the Reverend Gaumont indeed remove the Batts family and the obstacle they presented when they refused to sell their land to him? Will my family face the same fate? Oh, how ready am I to be away from this place, and to be drawing nearer to you, and farther away from that hideous old Reverend and the dark specter he presents. And yet I will not allow that fiend to darken my heart ahead of our greatest day, the day in which we will be reunited in New York City, and the day in which we will be joined as husband and wife. I wish we could have the wedding here in Harborview, but with circumstances surrounding your divorce, an elegant eastern seaboard elopement with Mother and Sophie in attendance will prove just as joyful. It has to be, Lowell. I promise to be a good wife and to wait, with heart nearly still, until we meet again. My love always, Diana Pembroke.
Diana Pembroke has declared her intentions towards Lowell Putnam and will soon depart for the Big Apple and a surprise marriage with her mother and Sophie in tow. Of course, there's no shortage of activity at halfway there in the absence of the Pembroke women during the summer of 1914. And neighbourhood society columnist Nancy Dawson will share it all with you in the next instalment of Annex.